right.
Today is September 16th, 2019. We are doing session 1 of Together Facing the Challenge. We have 2 families participating tonight that are new families, trained within this year and are now serving children. So this is their Together Facing the Challenge in service session 1. Okay, so we've all done our name tags, even though we all knew each other. Thank y'all for taking the time to come out tonight to participate in Together Facing the Challenge. You all know who we are. Raylyn licensed your family, and I am doing your supervision now, so everybody knows everybody and who we are. If you all will look in your manuals, and you should see the key components for this training. Session 1 is going to be talking about building relationships and teaching cooperation. Session 2, setting expectations. Session 3, use of effective parenting tools to enhance cooperation. Session 4 will be implementing effective consequences. Session 5, cultural sensitivity. Session 6, transitioning to young adulthood. And Session 7, effective communication and taking care of yourself. So tonight, being Session 1, we're going to understand the purpose of evidence-based practice, which therapeutic foster care is an evidence-based practice. Understand the importance of positive relationships for the youth's success in therapeutic foster care. Learn how to understand youth behaviors and how they develop, and how what happens before and after behaviors are very important. And learn how to collect information on behaviors to help you develop an effective action plan for addressing problem behaviors and increasing positive behaviors. We have a parking lot back here that we will use for any side conversations. Like if something comes up and you're like, hey, that reminds me, can we talk about this? We'll put it in the parking lot and we'll come back to it, okay? And then the rules of our road is to start and end on time, to stay on task, to not use client names, to make sure our cell phones are on silent, and to be respectful, okay? Make sure you take care of yourself. If you need to step out, the restroom is right out of the door here to the left. If you need a drink or whatever, if something is upsetting, make sure you take care of yourself. I don't think we'll be addressing anything tonight that would cause anybody to be upset. Okay? So I'll let Raylyn do the next section. So you're on activity icebreaker. Oh,
Did I go past?
yeah, you just
Okay,
go back
totally
to the icebreaker.
checked
Yeah,
for-
yeah, keep going. Right there.
This one?
Yeah, that's where you're at, and then you'll do the icebreaker.
All right. Do we want them to do that since we only have 3 participants?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and do it. All right, so if you all will stand up and stand in a line next to each other. And we're going to ask, we actually ask them to do that? I thought we
Just
were
ask
having
them.
them talk.
Yeah, you can't say anything. Okay, you can't make any type of. You just have to think about it for yourself and figure it out without using any type of communication as far as verbal. Okay, we want you to line up. How is it?
Based off of your birthday. So January would be first, and December would be last, and line up accordingly. And of course, you guys will know because you know when each other's born. So you're not sure.
So, and we're going left to right.
So you can communicate, just do not use.
Birthday by date? I'm sorry.
Like yes,
Question.
you're fine. No,
By date,
so
by
by
year,
date.
right?
So not even, you don't have to do by year,
Okay, then.
but just by month and date, with January being first and December being last.
Okay, let's see if we did it. So what was your birthday?
January 3rd.
And?
January 5th.
January 20th.
Wow, all January babies, that's good.
I should have remembered too.
Good.
I was the same day as my dad.
Good.
I should have, but I'm not moving on
Okay.
January.
And
but
y'all
that's-
did it by just using your fingers to say that, awesome, good job,
Good
okay.
job. You guys could sit down.
Now, can you imagine how difficult this is when you have like
A whole
10 or
lot.
20 people?
Yeah. It does take a little bit longer than that.
Or
So-
especially if there's a lot of people with really close birthdays.
Yeah,
Yeah,
getting it down to
exactly.
the date would probably be really difficult.
Exactly.
So what reason do you think we
Yeah,
might
look at it.
include this activity? What do you guys think would be a reason?
For a child nonverbal or something, or
Okay.
maybe can't speak with their words and only with their actions.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good, that's good. What would be another reason?
Finding different ways to communicate.
Different ways to communicate. Cooperation, right?
Cooperation.
Y'all had to cooperate with each other?
Or if
Okay.
somebody doesn't understand one way and you're trying to explain it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we did this and I think Deborah was doing like the foot tap. Or somebody
Yeah.
did foot tapping of the, because I think he even limited us to using, we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And so she was tapping and it was like nobody was understanding what she was trying to do, so.
She was trying to tap out how many days she was.
And and just trying to count them,
Yeah.
like, okay, so. And how do you think the communication skills in this activity connect to how we work with youth in our care?
Sometimes it can be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it can be difficult.
Exactly, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult.
So this was just mainly an activity to get you guys thinking about challenges faced in the process of learning a new or different way of communicating with someone else. By learning to expand our capacity to communicate with youth in different styles, we build trust and a sense of safety that lays the foundation for building therapeutic relationships. Okay.
All right, so now we're gonna move on and give y'all some information about therapeutic foster care and its history and the effectiveness, as a evidence-based treatment program. So therapeutic foster care, and we all use the acronym TFC for that, is an evidence-based intervention for youth. This means that research finds that TFC works, and it's been proven through many different modalities that it works. Youth get better over time and continue to do well even after they leave therapeutic foster care. Findings from the existing research suggest that 3 factors largely play in making it happen, why it is such a successful program. The first is that supportive and involved relationship between your resource coordinator and the foster parent. Okay, so that's the first step, is that you have that relationship with your supervisor. The next is supportive and involved relationship between the therapeutic parents and the children in their home. So you've built that relationship with the foster child. And then the last is effective use of behavior management strategies by therapeutic foster parents. And when we come out and do your supervision and we go through that Together Facing the Challenge coaching forum that we review every week, and we talk about what the behaviors are, both positive and negative, and how are you doing what are you doing to intervene, what seems to work, what are you working on next week. All of that is part of this Together Facing the Challenge, okay? And it's part of why it is an evidence-based program, because we're working it, okay? Research shows that when therapeutic foster parents have strong, supportive, and involved relationships with their resource coordinator, the therapeutic foster care goes better. The placement is more successful. There's less opportunities for disruption. Not that those things still don't happen, but when we have that relationship and we support the therapeutic parent, it helps. Together Facing the Challenge is designed to help you step outside the box, to learn different parenting skills needed to work with the youth that we're serving. What works for one child might not work for another child. what you do with your biological child, Zelda, might not work for a child that will come and live in your home, okay? So those types of things, we help you expand your knowledge base. And this section is also going to focus on the importance of establishing and maintaining those positive relationships with everybody involved. The social worker, the therapist, the GAL, whoever's involved with that child's case, we want to have those positive relationships, okay? Very good. That's perfect. You want to, where do I hit? Okay, right there, okay.
I don't know why they're doing this. All right, so this next activity, what's a relationship got to do with it? We're gonna do it a little bit differently because we only have 3 of you. Typically would do like where you would get in smaller groups, but we are a fairly small group as it is. So I do have some questions that I would like for us to discuss. And since I know you all are really good at participating and providing feedback, I'm just gonna kind of go through some of these questions. And then if you guys want to provide some responses to the questions based off of your experience, and kind of your expectations, we'll do that.
Okay, yeah,
Easier.
like a small group.
Yeah. All right,
Our
so.
packet doesn't really follow this.
It doesn't, and I'll try to tell you when to go to what page of the foster parent manual. I should have explained that, but it does help a little bit.
I'm like,
If I
going
do
through this
tell,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
some of it doesn't follow, so I do apologize for that, for not letting you know. What are some important building blocks to a relationship with your therapeutic foster youth? So what are some important building blocks to that relationship?
Trust.
Trust. Definitely.
I'd say learning each other's boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about boundaries, don't we?
Boundaries, but staying open and honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. And those are all things, if you guys remember when we went through training, were some things that we did talk about, that foundation of being honest, building that trust with them, and definitely boundaries is something that we always probably do talk about or you hear quite frequently. What about some barriers that you anticipate I can't talk today. Barriers that you anticipate may get in the way of establishing a positive relationship with your therapeutic foster youth? What are some barriers that maybe even you've already seen that have gotten in the way of establishing that positive relationship?
Trust issues.
Trust issues, yeah.
History.
Yep, are you talking about more of their history?
Yeah,
Yes.
versus
Past
their
traumas.
past traumas.
There's trauma history. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Adjustment period.
yeah. So have you guys experienced like the honeymoon phase and
I
then,
think the honeymoon phase for us was respite, and then when we first had her, it was never a honeymoon.
yeah, because
Yeah,
you
she
guys-
didn't
yeah.
honeymoon.
Yeah, she didn't honeymoon, really. Okay. What about what do you guys see as the primary roles and responsibilities of your case manager when a placement takes place?
So that would be me, the resource coordinator.
I think one of the big things is them trying to, what they know about their history. Like in our experience, our foster child wasn't even open to discussing trauma and stuff like that she went through until now
Mm-hmm.
with us. So
Right.
it's really hard because you think you're gonna get all this background and stuff, but there's, I don't know. But they help you through it, once you.
Yeah, there's a lot of disclosure happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
ideally, you would love to know the history and you get as much as you know. I don't know, it's just like like she said, it's like a ongoing relationship with your supervisor and kind of working through it, but, I guess, openness, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just the constant support and being able to reach out whenever you need something or if you have a question about something. Because you don't know everything right up front. You kind of just get a little tidbit and then you're like, yes or no, and then.
Baptism by fire, right?
So they're kind of your go-to person, when you start discovering some things and as that child gets comfortable with you and sharing more things, then of course, your resource coordinator is somebody that you definitely talk to and go to. So having a good relationship with that person is really important, right?
Gotta use building blocks on you.
What do you see as your primary roles and responsibilities as a therapeutic foster parent? What are your primary responsibilities and role?
I feel like making a safe environment.
Safe environment, building the trust,
Giving the best care we can.
trying to not let history repeat itself so that they can have a more level, period in their life so that they can sort things out and know that there's a stable environment for them.
And all of you are rock stars, so that's happening. I mean, really, you're doing a great job.
All right. What do you think are or will be the most challenging aspects of your role as a foster parent? I'm sure you guys have already encountered some of those challenges, right? Establishing boundaries. And when you say establishing boundaries, are you saying that both for you or
More
establishing
for the-
those boundaries with the child?
For the child.
Yeah.
It's definitely been more for the child.
I think
It's-
one thing that you don't, I didn't mean to say. One thing you don't realize is that, and I've started to realize more, is that this child's had to take care of themselves for so long that they don't understand adult and child. So they are still trying to control themselves, and then you see that as defiance, but really, when you try to think of it, it's because they've just been in control of their life for so long. Why should they trust you to have their best interests, you know?
They have to have their own back, so
Yeah.
to them it might be hard for them to loosen up those reins and let you guys have their back. as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
And really didn't have that appropriate parenting, so when you come in to try to parent,
Yeah.
you know, they see that as, you're telling me what to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not seeing that you have their best
Yeah,
interest
this is what we do as parents, yeah.
This is what
That's
a
what
parent
looks
looks
like.
like.
Yeah, this is what that looks like, yeah.
As far as boundaries go for us, it's hard because we have a 14-year-old and I don't know if it's just because she hasn't really had like a stable parental like environment, but like she was really kind of clingy and doesn't really look good with a 14-year-old hanging on a male, when we're out and doing stuff. So it's that boundary between her and my husband, and he wants to love her as a child, but she wants to always be on him, and it's just not exactly a proper relationship. So finding the boundaries and setting them, it's uncomfortable for both sides, but she just wants love, and he wants to be there and support her, but it's
Yeah.
difficult to find
Yeah,
the line.
finding that appropriate match, yep. I think we have some visitors with us, so I'm gonna close this.
So the next one is, what do you think are or will be the most rewarding or satisfying things in your role as a therapeutic foster parent? So what have you seen to be rewarding for you guys, or hoping to be rewarding?
It's been rewarding with Lydia feeling comfortable, Elle
Yeah.
feeling comfortable enough to confide in us. And to see that she really is comfortable and wants to be, at home. Feels like she's at home.
For me, it's been rewarding already just seeing our foster daughter, step out of her comfort zone and try new things and succeed at them and be excited and want to continue to try new things. And she tells us all the time she never wants to leave. So it's like,
That
almost
has to feel
instant-
very rewarding.
instant gratification for that. But I'm just, really proud for her to try things that she hasn't done before and succeed at them.
Yeah.
And that definitely shows that self-esteem has definitely went up, and that you and James played a role in that, right? Awesome. What are the main ingredients needed for your relationship with your therapeutic foster youth to be successful? What do you
Say that
think?
one more time.
What are the main ingredients needed for your relationship with your foster child to be successful?
Being consistent, I feel like is a big one.
I still feel like the trust, the consistency.
I think you all kind of give them that unconditional love,
Yeah.
you know, and
The love but boundary.
yeah. You're there to nurture and to let them know that it's okay to make mistakes and you still care about them regardless, you know, and that kind of stuff. They need that reassurance. So, and you all three do an awesome job with that. So.
All right, so those were all of the questions. So now if you turn to your foster care manual to page 6, it goes over some keys to building relationships with youth in our care. And we have already, in your guys' responses, you guys have already touched on probably all of these. So I'm just gonna read through them. Earn their trust, role model appropriate behavior, show them respect. And I think that you guys didn't really mention that, but inadvertently with what you guys are doing, you definitely are showing them respect, showing them that they are definitely worthy of being respected, because it sounds like their self-esteem is going up, and if they don't feel that respect, it's not going to go up at all. Build on things that you and the child have in common. Find things she or he is interested in. Be a good listener. Be honest. Have a positive attitude. Be patient. Be loving, and communicate clearly and frequently. So it sounds like from what Tracy is saying and what you guys have shared that you guys are hitting on probably all of these. Some days may be better than others, of course, so keep that in mind. But you guys definitely are doing a great job. So the relationship between case managers and therapeutic foster parents is an essential part of establishing a working partnership between the agency and the treatment parents to help youth succeed. Just as important is the relationship that you guys develop between the youth and your care, like we just discussed, okay? So with
Does that move us on to the next?
that, yes, that does.
Okay. So now we're going to do another activity called the invisible suitcase. So those index cards and baggies that I gave you all, okay? On one of the index cards, I want you to think about and write down a statement that your foster child may hold about themselves. Okay, so on one card, you're going to talk about, write a statement about what you feel like they would say about themselves. Okay? Then on another card, I want you to write down a statement that the child in your home would say about their caregivers. Okay? So that meaning you. Okay? And then write down a statement on the third card that says a statement that the child would say about the world in general. Okay, so think about your kid and how would she respond to these questions? Okay, take as much time as you need. Are you good?
I know, I'm used to locking up, so
Oh, okay.
I was going, you still make me apologize.
No, you're good. We'll lock up. All right, let's take just a few minutes to do this. And once you've made the statement, put it in the baggie. I.e. the invisible suitcase.
Us.
What would they say about you as their caregivers?
I don't like talking about myself.
No.
It makes me feel weird.
Well, no. I mean, what would you think she would say?
Okay. So, the plastic bag naturally represents the invisible suitcase that all of our kids bring with them from the experiences that they've had in their life. It could be through previous foster placements, their time with their biological family, the trauma they might have experienced, the abuse, neglect, all of the stuff, poor parenting, all of those things that we know the majority of our children have experienced in some form or fashion, okay? Or they wouldn't be in our homes, right? I mean, they've experienced some pretty bad things. So those things are not necessarily in their suitcase that they came with, right? And some of our kids come very minimal stuff, I can't tell you how many kids I've had to bring into the home that their stuff was in a trash bag, okay? And then we've got kids who come with, it takes 2 vehicles to get all their stuff to your house, because they've collected so much through the years, okay? So you've got both of those situations happening. But this is not anything you can tangibly hold. It's not anything that they're going to be able to really tell you, okay? So this invisible suitcase is truly a part of their, it follows them wherever they go. It's going to continue to follow them. So we want to make sure that while they're in our care, that these statements are going to be positive statements and not negative statements, okay? So that's the only, we can't change what's happened to them, unfortunately. We wish we could, but we can't. So all we can do is just trying to help them rewrite. So their invisible suitcase is not full of negative stuff. It's full of positive things. The contents of the invisible suitcase are usually not words, but they're not expressed through words, but yet it's expressed through their expressions and their behaviors, okay? The things that we see them do. They're not going to come in and say, hey, such and such and such and such happened. They're going to tell you that through how they behave and how they respond to different things that happen to them in your home, okay? It's important to create a relationship that is emotionally and psychologically safe so that they can create an environment that is sensitive to the contents of their, you all are helping them create an environment that's sensitive to their invisible suitcase, okay? So that's your role as their foster parents, okay? Does anybody like to share what's on their invisible suitcase?
I will.
You will? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I don't have to read.
Okay.
So the first one, she thinks of herself as a funny or silly girl. Caregivers, she's actually said this before, that we're caring and they love me. And the world's scary to her.
Okay. Very good. You want to share, Zella?
I said that, number one, the statement about herself is that it's all my fault. It's like her go-to statement. She says it often. What she would say about her caregivers, she says, I love you all the time. And then what she thinks about the world is it's not fair.
And that is so spot on. Yeah. And what you said about Elle is spot on too, so.
Well, I mean, that, but also the first one for me was, she thinks she's a bad kid, so we're still working on that. Like, when she was in therapy, which I don't know.
It's getting better.
It's getting better, but,
But initially, that was what she was carrying.
The therapist was like, talk about how you're funny, and she just started saying all this negative. And then the therapist like, well, this is supposed to be positive, like you're funny, and stuff like that. But, so we're still working on that, but, wasn't always positive,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, and for a moment, it might go back a little bit, especially with her situation in the fact that there is a lot of stuff being disclosed, and she's getting comfortable and she's sharing things that's happened that she's never shared before. So as those things come out, you might see some backstepping, because she's having to deal and cope and all of that stuff. So, don't feel like it's regression, it's gonna happen, you
Yeah.
know, and it's just part of it. So, yeah, very good. So, that leads us into, how does trauma affect the youth?
All right, so understanding the contents of your youth's invisible suitcase is very important in understanding children in your care and helping them to overcome the effects of trauma. Remember that what you wrote on your index card may be the kind of thinking that is in their minds and drives their feelings and behaviors. So, how do you guys think that you can help your youth repack their invisible suitcase? How can you help them to rethink how they feel about themselves, how they feel about their caregivers, and just the world in general? What are some things that you can do to help them, or that you are doing to help them? Because it sounds like you guys are doing quite a bit on your parts to help them repack their suitcase. So what do you think?
One of the big things for us we had to learn is you really have to figure out triggers, because the youth they don't understand what a trigger is or what it is. And very quickly, probably like one of the first weeks we had our placement, we found out that bag was a trigger. We had told her, you know, you can't get a toy in the mall because you've been behaving badly. And when we were like getting all the trash out of our vehicle, by the end of the day we found this little piece of paper she had written bad like 100 times. And we were like, oh my, you know? So we've learned that we have to make the good things that she does, which are a lot of things, really big. We have to watch the way we address when she is making poor decisions. That's the wording we have to use, poor decisions, or you know, just things like that. We have to be very conscientious of, and just making her feel confident, you know, about herself, you know. That's been a big thing for us.
Good example.
Yeah. What do you think, Sylvia?
Just a lot of just, you know, like reassuring, and for us, it's not allowing a whole lot of downtime, because with S's depression, the more downtime she has, the more she gets into her feelings. It's good to get into her feelings sometimes, but too much downtime leads to a lot of depression and other things. So keeping her busy, but then also being there to listen and just letting her be open when she needs somebody to talk to. Mostly just letting her talk when she needs to talk, keeping her busy and reassuring her that she's doing really well. And, you know, just keeping her busy and trying new things has been a huge help in the house. Like, meeting new friends. She's in a new area. She's not even from around here, so taking her to do new stuff has been really helpful for her.
And then I'm sure there's one thing that you all are doing that you probably didn't even think of, but you mentioned it in the last activity, was just keeping them safe, protecting them from harm, and showing them that, you know, the world and their caregivers can be a safe place for them. And that's one thing that we stressed and, you know, we think about, but then it's one thing when, in the bigger scheme of things, there's so many other things that you guys are doing on a daily basis that sometimes you probably just forget. Just having that safe place for them is making a world of difference and helping them to get to the point where they're at. Good. So children in care frequently reenact patterns or relationships from their past in their present interactions with you guys, and I'm sure that you have already seen that with some behaviors and some actions. They get your attention while keeping you at a safe distance, both physically and emotionally, and they do that to prove that the negative beliefs they hold in their invisible suitcase are accurate. So you might have seen that early on with some of your when you're trying to develop that relationship. It's often used as a vehicle to vent their frustrations, anger, and anxiety, and as a means of protecting themselves. So their survival skills, in a sense, and they often worked for them in other settings, so that's going to be their go-to when they come into a foster home. So it's very important for us, our foster parents, not to buy into the negative beliefs and expectations that a child has. It's very important for you guys to not react in anger or in the heat of the moment, which is sometimes easier said than done, I'm sure, right? And it's very important for you guys not to take the child's behavior at face value and kind of see that there's a need behind every behavior and try to figure out what that is. And finally, it's important for you guys to not take it personally, and I'm sure that's sometimes very difficult, especially as you have established that relationship. Although, they might have those personal attacks towards you guys, it's not really about you guys. It's about the things that have happened in the past and that they're trying to work through. And they may be trying to challenge that relationship with you to make sure it is a for real relationship and it's legit. You guys are in it for the long haul. So I guess the big thing with promoting physical, emotional, and psychological safety would be to help them be more familiar with their physical surroundings, give them choices and responsibilities so they can experience a sense of control, set limits, provide information to inform youth about what is going to take place in the future, provide opportunities for self-expression, and help them maintain a sense of connection with their culture and their past. So really revolving some of your stuff around safety.
Okay, I didn't know if it.
Is really important, and being aware of that. Okay. All right. So the next thing that we're going to talk about, you've got this one, Tracy, is how does trauma affect youth in care? Oh, I did have another thing. Never mind. Why do I need to parent my TFC?
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so the rationale for providing more structured parenting for therapeutic foster children, and we've talked about this briefly, and I know Megan and Courtney, you all haven't had personal experience with raising children. And Zelda, you're fairly a new parent. Your daughter's just turned 5.
She turns 5 on Saturday.
Turns 5 on Saturday. So, like I said before, what works for one child is not necessarily going to work for another. So when we try to apply the strategies that you all have used in the past with other children and it doesn't work, sometimes we become frustrated because it's like, oh my gosh, this worked so well with such and such, but it's not working at all with this child. So what we want to do is make sure that with the therapeutic foster children that we are using Together Facing the Challenge strategies and interventions because they've been proven to work. And not every Together Facing the Challenge intervention is going to work for every child, but there's going to be something that come out of those strategies that will be key. And it might only be key for a little while, and then you're going to have to switch it up and try something new, okay? While these strategies may have been effective with children, like I said, that you've worked with in the past, our kids have experienced trauma. So, hopefully the children that you've parented, and your child hasn't experienced trauma, right, Zelda? So it's going to be a different situation. She's had consistent parenting, whereas our foster children have not. She's never experienced abuse, which our foster children have. She's never been neglected, which our foster children have. Now, your child hasn't had previous multiple placements, but she has had multiple placements, even though it was with family. You know what I'm saying? Those are still considered multiple placements. And we know Elle has had numerous placements. So both of those children have experience being bounced from one household with one set of rules and parenting style to another household with another set of rules and parenting, so lots of confusion. So we can understand where some of these behaviors come from, okay? In our work as therapeutic foster parents, one of the most frequently reported difficulty is getting kids to listen, cooperate, and follow house rules, right? Yeah, because when we've already talked about it, they're used to
parenting themselves, doing their own thing, taking care of themselves. Who are you telling me what to do? All that, you know. We always make the joke, you're not my real mom, you know. But it's true, right? Many therapeutic foster parents wonder why the strategies that they've used in the past with their biological children or other children that they've parented are not effective. This question is frequently asked and can take on a new role when we become foster parents, okay? You're no longer, it's not your biological child, it's not your niece, your nephew, you know, your family. This is a child that is coming to you that you've been asked to parent, to reparent, okay? The natural assumption is that whatever worked before is going to work again, but we've already discussed that that's not always the case. Many of our youth come that have horrible backgrounds, and the way they behave is shaped over time. It didn't happen overnight. They didn't just come to your house and all of a sudden start acting the way that they act. It was from probably birth, right on until they've been in your home. Sometimes it's purposeful behavior that they do. We know that kids do things on purpose, but then there are unintentional behaviors, things that they don't even realize they're doing. It's just a habit, okay? So again, as therapeutic foster parents, you're just going to have to tweak and rethink sometimes how parenting might look. It's no fault of yours if these time-proven techniques that you've been able to use that's been so successful don't work on a particular child. It's just, it doesn't work for that child. Because each child is unique and come with their own history and set of experiences. So we want you to be able to think about that and realize that that's where those interventions and strategies that we talk about and we suggest, we know that everything that we suggest is not going to work. But we throw them out there and say, hey, try this and see if it works. And when we regroup the next week, we'll say, hey, how did that work? And it didn't phase her, or she totally was like accepting of it. You know, it could go either way. So that's where those techniques, suggestions come in, okay? All right, and this is going to lead us to how does uncooperative behavior develop?
All right, so as we know that some children exhibit increasingly delinquent behavior at a very young age, and that can extend on into adulthood based on the reactions and responses of their external world. So what this basically is saying is the development of these behaviors is somewhat predictable, and if it's not interrupted, you're going to see an increase in those behaviors as time goes on, right? So one surefire way to keep a child on the path to antisocial behavior is to give in to their demands. So I want you guys to think about a time, we'll use Walmart, and I think I gave this example when we went through training as an example. Seeing a child in Walmart throwing a temper tantrum because they want that candy bar in the checkout aisle and their mom says no. They've thrown themselves on the floor, they're crying, they're screaming, I want it! What do you guys typically see a parent do in response to that behavior? A lot of times, so the parent's not embarrassed, they give in, right? Here, you can have it. And then what do we typically see from the child? They get up off the floor, they're calm, they're smiling, they got their candy bar. So right then and there, we're reinforcing that negative behavior, right? And it's not just reinforcing for the child, it's also reinforcing for the parent, right? The parent knows if I give in, if I say yes all the time, I'm not going to get this negative behavior. It's so much easier to say yes and get them to stop screaming than persist on saying no and them continue to fall on the floor. I will be honest, I did see a parent one time. The child was screaming. I thought they were getting hurt, physically hurt. And I looked over and the mom was like sticking to her guns and was like, nope, mm-mm. And so she proceeded, she was in self-checkout and just kept checking out. And that child just sat there and screamed. And I'm like, I don't know as a parent if I could have done that. So it is so much easier to give in sometimes than it is to actually stick to your guns and say no. But then you have a pattern that sometimes is very difficult to get out of and can persist through adolescence and into adulthood. So the challenge for you guys as therapeutic foster parents is that the youth that might come into your home may have been in this cycle for many years already prior to coming in your home. And I don't mean to laugh about it, but you may get a child that's already knows exactly how to work the system, how to get a response from you, and how to make things go in their favor based off of past foster parents that they've been with or even family members, right? The other thing with that is attempting to disrupt this cycle can be met with some pretty strong resistance from the youth. And even an increase in some of those undesirable behaviors. So they may say, well, if you're going to say no and you're going to stick to your guns, then I'm going to go ahead and elevate my behaviors, and then you'll eventually say yes. So if the above parent in the scenario above sticks to her guns and refuses to give in to the child's demands, the child's behavior probably would have increased, more screaming, more yelling, may have even attempted to take the candy bar and open it and start eating it. You just don't know. So if parents are not aware of how this behavior develops over time, they may give in and be very unaware that they're starting that vicious cycle into adulthood. So we're going to go over a little PowerPoint with the different stages. So we have stage 1, and that's saying during preschool years, children learn to use negative or coercive behavior as a means of getting their own way. So they learn that these behaviors work because adults reinforce those behaviors by giving in to their demands. Like we said with the Walmart scenario, this can start at a very young age. Temper tantrums, whining, hitting. I don't know what the kids that you guys have in your care, if you've seen any of those, because it sounds like they're a little bit older, but you probably, like we've talked about before too, that just because their physical age is a certain age does not mean that you're not going to still see some of those things as well. So then we progress into stage 2, and those are the early school years. So they're becoming a little bit more skilled in getting their way. You might see a little bit more manipulation. They've not learned to be cooperative and compliant with adults and peers, so they might have difficulties in school, getting along with their peers and their teachers, making friends, and then that decreases their opportunities in developing some of those positive relationships with their peers. They try to get attention in negative ways. They may act out and try to be maybe like the class clown, try to get a rile out of everybody. You might see that in a child in those early school years. Then you have stage 3, which is adolescence. This is where it can get really fun. They're increasingly rejected by well-behaved peers, so they tend to flock more to those negative and inappropriate behaviors and flock to that maybe more negative crowd of kids. They might learn some more negative behaviors in the process, so stealing, substance abuse. This might see some violence, skipping school, starting to be sexually active, and that's just because that's who they're interacting with. They're interacting with more of the negative crowd because that's where they feel that they fit in. They might avoid adults and peers might give in more to the demands, so you might have a child that wants to do things that's a little beyond their years, but because they're already out of control, you give into those things more. So that might be where you see a foster child come into your home where their parents may have been giving in because if I don't tell them they can do it, they're gonna do it anyway type mentality. And they may become more threatening. So if they don't get their way, they might start threatening their caregiver, or become violent with them. And you'll see that more in those adolescent years. Stage 4 is that late adolescence and young adulthood age, and I laugh at this because this is where I say you typically would see the 20-some-year-old son living in his mom's basement playing video games all day and not working, not maintaining a job. And that's just because their social skills are so far off from where they should be. They want to be antisocial, they don't want to be around a lot of people, they're kind of set in their ways at this point. And mom lets him live in the basement. Mom has given in to him for so many years, so 20-year-old son now is at the point where he knows. Mom says I have to get a job, but if I don't get one, she's really not going to kick me out of the house. What was that news report where the son got evicted from his parents' house? Did you guys see that on the news? This was like almost a year ago, and he was trying to go to court with his parents about this because he felt like he had the right to stay in his parents' house free of charge. So I immediately was thinking of that, like, oh my goodness, he has gotten to that stage where mom has said no, or said yes way too many times. So, luckily there's ways to stop this, and you guys may already be doing that in your own homes. It sounds like you probably have to with some of the behaviors in your home. So many studies show that good supervision and consistent discipline can alter the child's aggressive and antisocial patterns. So the big key with this is that consistency. So there was somebody consistently telling them yes, now you guys are consistently setting those boundaries and telling them no.